Nearly 6 in 10 Americans could not cover a $1,000 emergency with cash. Not because they are lazy, and not because they are stupid, because nobody ever handed them a plan. So let me hand you one. Imagine I lost everything tonight. My savings, my accounts, my safety net, all gone. Tomorrow, I wake up with $0, a normal job, ordinary bills, and only one thing left: what I know about money. This video is the exact plan I would follow to rebuild, in order, starting from that zero. No inheritance, no lucky crypto trade, no rich uncle. Just the sequence that actually works, done in the right order. And the order is the whole secret. Most people fail with money not because they do the wrong things, but because they do the right things in the wrong order. They try to invest before they have an emergency fund. They try to save while paying 24% interest on a credit card. They budget for a month, get discouraged, and quit. Order fixes all of that. Here is what I promise you by the end of this video. You will know precisely what to do first, what to do second, and what to ignore completely until later. You will have a plan you could start tonight with whatever is in your pocket. Now, here is the open loop I want you to hold on to. By chapter 8, I am going to give you a single calculation. It takes under 2 minutes, and it tells you the truth, whether you are actually on track to build real wealth, or whether you are just staying busy and hoping. Almost nobody has run this number. When you do, it changes how you see every dollar. So stay with me to chapter 8. This is not motivation. There will be no vague talk about believing in yourself. This is mechanics. The same mechanics the wealthy use, stripped of the jargon that keeps regular people locked out. And it starts from zero, which, as I am about to show you, is not the disadvantage you think it is. In fact, starting from zero with the right knowledge is one of the cleanest positions you can be in. Let me show you why. Quick reminder before we dive in. This is education, not financial advice. I am going to give you the framework. You apply it to your own situation. Let us begin.
Let us reframe the starting point, because your mindset here decides everything that follows. Most people treat zero as a hole they have to climb out of. I want you to treat it as a clean slate. Here is the truth almost no one says out loud. Many people who look wealthy are actually deep in the negative. They have the leased car, the big house, the nice clothes, and behind it, $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 of debt. If you are at zero, you are not behind them. You are ahead of them. They have to dig out of a hole before they even reach where you are standing right now. Zero is the ground floor. Negative is the basement. Starting from zero means you carry no bad habits into the new plan. You are not emotionally attached to a payment you cannot afford. You are not defending a purchase you regret. You get to build the machine correctly from the first brick. Now, let me tell you what actually determines whether you build wealth, because it is simpler than the internet makes it seem. Wealth comes down to 2 levers, and only 2. Lever 1, the gap between what you earn and what you spend. Lever 2, what you do with that gap. That is it. Everything else, every budgeting app, every investment, every side hustle is just a tool for pulling one of those 2 levers. Widen the gap, then put the gap to work. People with high incomes and no gap stay broke. People with modest incomes and a consistent gap, invested patiently, become quietly wealthy. This is why the janitor who dies with $2 million is a real and repeating story, and the lawyer who dies with nothing is also a real and repeating story. The income is not the deciding factor. The gap is. So from zero, our entire mission is to create a gap as fast as possible, protect it, and then aim it. And here is the part that should give you hope. The gap does not require a huge income to start. It requires attention. Most people have a gap already, they just cannot see it because it leaks out through dozens of small holes they have stopped noticing. In the next chapter, we start plugging those holes. But I want to plant something first, because we will come back to it. There is a difference between being broke and being poor. Broke is a temporary cash position. You can be broke on a Tuesday and fine by Friday. Poor is a mindset and a pattern that keeps resetting you to zero no matter how much comes in.
This plan is designed to break the pattern, not just fix the Tuesday. That is why we do it in order, and why we do not skip steps. Skipping steps is how people end up right back where they started 18 months later, wondering what went wrong. So, 0 is the clean slate, 2 levers, the gap and what you do with it, and a pattern we are going to break for good. In 2 chapters, I am going to show you the single fastest way to free up money, and I promise you it has nothing to do with cutting your morning coffee.
Before we earn $1 more or invest $1 at all, we stop the money that is already leaving. This is week 1, and it is the highest return work you will ever do, because every dollar you stop losing is a dollar you keep at a 100% return, instantly, with no risk. Here is the exercise. Pull up the last 60 days of your bank and card statements. Not 30, 60, because some charges hit monthly and you will miss them in a single month. Now go line by line. I want you to sort every expense into 3 buckets. Bucket 1. This kept me alive and working. Rent, utilities, groceries, transport to my job, minimum debt payments. Bucket 2. This made my life better, and I would consciously choose it again. Bucket 3. I forgot this was even happening. Bucket 3 is where the money is. This is where you find the streaming service you have not opened in months, the gym you stopped attending in February, the app that quietly renewed at $40, the subscription box you meant to cancel. The average person is leaking somewhere between $200 and $300 every single month through Bucket 3 alone. That is over $3,000 a year, gone, in pieces too small to notice one at a time. Cancel all of Bucket 3 today, not next week, today, while you can see it. Every one of those is a raise you are giving yourself with a single click. Now look at Bucket 2, the lifestyle spending. We are not going to be miserable here. Deprivation is why budgets fail. But I want you to find the 2 or 3 biggest items and ask one honest question. Is this worth more to me than being free? Maybe it is. Keep it. Maybe it is a habit you drifted into. Trim it. The goal is not 0 enjoyment. The goal is intentional enjoyment. Spending on what you actually value and cutting hard on what you do not. Notice what we did not do. We did not touch Bucket 1, the essentials. And we did not start with cutting coffee or lattes, because that advice is mostly a distraction. The real money is not in your $5 habits. It is in the recurring charges and the big fixed costs. The car payment, the apartment that is a little too expensive, the subscriptions on autopilot. Fix the big and the recurring, and you never have to feel guilty about a coffee again. One more move for week 1. Put every automatic payment on your radar. Autopay is convenient, but it is also how leaks stay hidden. Set a recurring reminder, the first of every quarter, to review every subscription you are paying for. 90% of people never do this, which is exactly why the leaks survive for years. By the end of week 1, with no new income, you have likely freed up $200 to $400 a month. That freed up money is not for spending. It is the fuel for every single step that comes next. Hold it. Protect it. In the next chapter, we give it its first job.
The money you freed up in week 1 has a first destination, and it is not investing, and it is not paying off debt. It is a small, boring $1,000 cushion. Here is why this comes first, before everything. Life will interrupt your plan. The car will need a repair. The tooth will crack. The unexpected bill will arrive at the worst possible moment. It always does. If you have no cushion when that happens, you do the one thing that resets you to 0. You reach for the credit card. And now you are borrowing at 24% to survive. That is the trap that keeps people cycling forever. The starter fund breaks the cycle. $1,000 sitting in a separate account means the next small emergency is an inconvenience, not a catastrophe. It is the difference between a bad afternoon and 6 months of new debt. Now, $1,000 is not your final emergency fund. We build the real one later, after the debt is handled. This is just the seatbelt, so the plan survives contact with real life. How do we get to $1,000 as fast as possible? 3 levers. First, the money you already freed up in week 1, point all of it here. Second, a quick sweep of what you own.
Almost everyone has $300 to $500 of stuff they do not use sitting in closets and drawers. The old phone, the equipment for the hobby you dropped, the clothes with tags still on. Sell it. It isn't glamorous, but it is fast, and it turns dead weight into a safety net. Third, if you can pick up any temporary extra income this month, a few shifts, a weekend of gig work, a task for someone who needs it, every dollar goes here until you hit 1,000. For most people willing to do the work, this fund is full within 30 to 60 days. Where do you keep it? Not in your checking account, where it blends in and gets spent by accident. Open a separate high-yield savings account. Online banks pay meaningfully more than the big brick-and-mortar banks, and it is free to open. Keeping it separate does something psychological too. Money you have to transfer is money you are far less likely to touch. Give the account a name if your bank allows it. Call it something that makes you hesitate before spending it, and then leave it alone. This account has exactly one purpose: real emergencies. A sale is not an emergency. A vacation is not an emergency. A car that will not start when you need to get to work, that is an emergency. Protect the line. Once that 1,000 is sitting there, something changes in your head. For maybe the first time, you are not one bad day away from disaster. That small buffer buys you the calm to make good decisions instead of desperate ones, and desperate decisions are expensive. In 2 chapters, we attack the debt, and I'll show you the exact order to pay it in so you keep the most money and build momentum you can feel.
You cannot run this plan on hope. You need a simple structure that tells every dollar where to go before the month begins. But forget the complicated budgets with 40 categories that collapse after 2 weeks. We are going to use a framework so simple you can run it on one screen. It is called Giving Every Dollar a Job. At the start of each month, you look at the income you expect, and you assign all of it down to 0 left unassigned before the month starts. Not because you spend it all, but because savings and debt pay off for jobs too. Money without a job wanders off. Money with a job stays. Here is the starting structure while we are rebuilding from 0. First, the essentials, the bucket 1 expenses that keep you alive and working. Housing, utilities, food, basic transport, minimum debt payments. Keep this as lean as you honestly can without making your life unbearable. If your housing alone is eating more than 1/3 of your take-home pay, flag it. That single number quietly wrecks more financial plans than any other, and we may need to attack it. Second, the plan money, the gap we created in week 1. During the rebuild, this money has a rotating job. Right now it is finishing the starter fund. Next it will be crushing high-interest debt. After that it will be building the full emergency fund, and then investing. Same dollars, different mission each phase. Third, a small amount of intentional lifestyle spending, so you actually stick with this. A budget with 0 joy is a diet with 0 food, it ends in a binge. Give yourself a defined, guilt-free amount for the things you enjoy. The key word is defined. When it is gone, and that is fine, because you chose it on purpose. Now, the part that makes budgets survive: track it during the month, not just at the start. You do not need fancy software. A note on your phone works. The entire point is awareness. The simple act of writing down a purchase before you make it kills a surprising number of purchases, because it forces the spending out of autopilot and into a decision. Most overspending is not a values problem. It is an attention problem. And here is the most important mindset shift about budgeting. A budget is not a restriction. A budget is you deciding what you want your money to do, instead of wondering where it went. People think budgets are about spending less. They are actually about spending on purpose. The freedom is not in the deprivation, it is in never again reaching the end of the month asking, where did it all go? Do this for 90 days and something clicks. You stop reacting to your money and start directing it. That control is worth more than any single dollar figure, because it is the skill that makes every other step in this plan work. Next, we turn that structured gap into a weapon and go after the thing quietly draining more of your future than almost anything else: high-interest debt.
Now we go to war with the thing that keeps people trapped at 0: high-interest debt. And I want to be precise about what we mean, because not all debt is the enemy. Credit card debt at 20 to 29% interest is a 5-alarm fire. That is the debt we attack now, with everything the plan can spare. A mortgage at a low fixed rate, or a student loan at a modest rate, that is a different conversation. and we do not let it distract us from the fire. Here is why high-interest debt is so destructive. When you carry a balance at 24%, you are guaranteed to lose 24% a year on that money. There is no investment on earth that reliably pays you 24%. So paying off that card is mathematically the best guaranteed return available to you, better than any stock, any fund, any scheme. Erasing a 24% debt is exactly as valuable as earning a 24% return with zero risk. That is why it comes before investing. Now, the order. List every high-interest debt, the balance, the minimum payment, and the interest rate. There are two proven methods, and I will tell you the honest trade-off. Method 1, the avalanche. You pay minimums on everything, then throw every spare dollar at the debt with the highest interest rate first. Mathematically, this saves you the most money. You kill the most expensive debt first. Method 2, the snowball. You pay minimums on everything, then throw every spare dollar at the smallest balance first, regardless of rate. You get a full payoff faster, which gives you a psychological win and momentum. Which should you use? Here is the truth the math-only crowd misses. The best method is the one you will actually finish. If you are the kind of person who needs to see progress to stay motivated, the snowball's early wins might be what carries you to the finish line, and finishing is worth more than a few saved dollars. If you are driven by the numbers, run the avalanche and save the most. Either way, the structure is the same. Minimums on all, everything extra on one target, and when that target dies, you roll its entire payment onto the next. That rolling is where the power is. As each debt falls, the amount you attack the next one with grows. The payments snowball into an avalanche. The last debt gets hit with the combined force of every payment before it. During this phase, the plan money from your budget goes here, minus the minimums, which live in your essentials. This is also where a temporary income boost pays off enormously, because every extra dollar here earns you a guaranteed high return by erasing interest. This phase can take months, sometimes a year or more, depending on the hole. It is the least glamorous part of the plan and the most important. When the high-interest debt hits zero, your monthly obligations drop, your stress drops, and suddenly there is a large recurring amount of money with no job. That freed-up cash flow is the engine for everything that comes next, the real emergency fund, and then wealth. And in 3 chapters, I am going to give you the one calculation that tells you whether all of this is actually working. Do not skip it. Do not skip it.
Here is something the frugality-only crowd will not tell you: you can only cut so far. Your expenses have a floor, you still have to eat, live somewhere, and get to work. But your income has no ceiling. That asymmetry is why, past a certain point, the fastest path out of zero is not spending less. It is earning more. So let us treat income like the lever it is. There are 3 realistic ways to raise it, and you should be working on more than one at a time. The first and most overlooked: get paid more at the job you already have. Most people never negotiate, and it costs them enormous amounts over a career. Before your next review, do 3 things. Document your wins in numbers: what you saved the company, what you produced, what you improved. Research what your role actually pays at other companies, so you know your market value. Then ask, calmly and specifically, backed by that evidence. The worst realistic outcome is a no, and even a no tells you whether it is time to look elsewhere. A single successful raise compounds every year for the rest of your career. It is one of the highest paid hours of work you will ever do. Second, add income on the side. Not a random hustle you saw online, but something built on a skill you already have or can learn. The most durable side income solves a specific problem for a specific person who will pay to have it solved. It might start small, a few $100s a month. But a few $100s a month, pointed at debt now and investments later, changes the entire timeline of this plan. And unlike cutting expenses, this stacks. You can always add more clients, more hours, more value. Third, and this is the long game that quietly beats everything, increase your skills so your main income rises over years, not just this quarter. The market pays for value, and value comes from skill. Every skill that makes you better at solving valuable problems is an investment that pays you for decades. This is the one form of spending money that reliably makes you richer: spending on your own ability to earn. Now, a warning, because this is exactly where most people sabotage themselves. When your income goes up, your lifestyle wants to go up with it. The raise arrives and suddenly the nicer apartment, the newer car, the upgraded everything feels reasonable. You earned it, right? This is called lifestyle inflation, and it is the single biggest reason high earners still end up broke. If every raise gets absorbed by a bigger lifestyle, your gap never grows, and the gap is the whole game. So here is the rule for this plan: when your income rises, your lifestyle holds. The difference, the entire raise, goes to the mission. Right now that means debt, soon it means investing. Let your income climb while your lifestyle stays deliberately flat, and the gap explodes. That expanding gap, invested, is how ordinary incomes turn into real wealth. You do not need to earn a fortune. You need to earn more and refuse to spend it, and point the difference at your future. Widen the gap from both sides, spend intentionally, earn aggressively, and the math starts working for you faster than you would believe.
With the high-interest debt gone, we come back to safety. But this time, we build the real thing. The $1,000 starter fund was a seatbelt. Now we build the airbag, a full emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of your essential expenses. Notice the word essential. We are not talking about 3 to 6 months of your full lifestyle. We are talking about the bucket 1 number, what it actually costs to keep your life running if your income stopped tomorrow. Rent, utilities, food, transport, minimums. That bare number times 3 times 6 is your target. How many months should you aim for? It depends on your risk. If your income is stable and predictable, a salary job, one steady employer, 3 months may be enough. If your income is variable, or you support a family on it, or your industry is volatile, push towards 6 months or beyond. When in doubt, more cushion buys more calm. And calm is what lets you keep the rest of your money invested during a scary market instead of panic selling. This is the fund's hidden second job. Everyone knows an emergency fund covers emergencies. What people miss is that it also protects your investments. The person with no cushion, when a crisis hits during a market downturn, is forced to sell their investments at the worst possible moment to raise cash. The person with 6 months of expenses in the bank rides out the same crisis without touching a single share. The emergency fund is what lets your long-term money stay long-term. Where does it live? The same place as the starter fund, a high-yield savings account, separate from your spending, where it earns real interest while staying instantly available. Not invested in stocks. This money's job is safety and access, not growth. Not locked away where you cannot reach it in an emergency. Liquid, separate, and boring. Boring is the point. Now, a lot of people ask, should I build the full emergency fund before I start investing or at the same time? Here is a reasonable middle path once your high-interest debt is dead. If your employer offers a retirement match, free money we will cover next chapter, capture that first, because it is an instant 100% return you should never leave on the table. Then finish the full emergency fund. Then pour into investing. That sequencing captures the free money, secures your safety, and gets you into the market without leaving yourself exposed. When your full emergency fund is complete, take a moment, because you have crossed a real line. You started at zero. You stopped the leaks, built a cushion, killed the debt, raised your income, and now you have several months of your life sitting safely in the bank with no debt hanging over you. Most people never reach this point in their entire lives. From here, the game changes. From defense to offense. From surviving to building. But before we build, we run the number. The one I promised you in the very first minute.
This is the chapter 1 promised you in the intro, and it is worth the wait, because almost no one runs this number, and it is the number that tells you the truth. Most people measure their finances by how they feel. They feel behind, or they feel fine, and neither feeling is data. Here is a 2-minute calculation that replaces the feeling with a fact. It is your savings rate, and it is the single most predictive number in personal finance. Your savings rate is simple. Of every dollar you bring home, what percentage do you keep and put toward your future, meaning debt payoff early on and investing later? Take the amount you save and invest in a month, divide it by your take-home pay for that month, and multiply by 100. That percentage is your savings rate. Now here is why it matters more than your income, more than your account balance, more than anything else. Your savings rate quietly determines how many years you have to work before money becomes optional. Think about it in extremes. If you save 0% of what you earn, you must work forever, no matter how big your paycheck is, because you never build anything. If you could somehow save 100%, you would need almost no working years, because every year of expenses is already covered. Everyone lives between those two poles, and where you sit on that line is set by your savings rate. Let me give you rough anchors so you know where you stand. A savings rate around 10% is the traditional advice, and it points toward a long, standard, 40-year career. Push it to 20%, and you have meaningfully accelerated, you are pulling your freedom years closer. Get to 30, 40, 50%, which is very achievable once your debt is gone and your lifestyle is held flat, and you compress a 40-year timeline into something dramatically shorter. The people who reach financial independence unusually early are not all high earners. They are people with very high savings rates. That is the lever. Run your number right now, honestly. If it is low, do not be discouraged, you now know exactly what to improve, and you have the two tools to improve it: widen the gap by spending intentionally, and widen it further by earning more. Every percentage point you add to your savings rate pulls your freedom closer. And here is the adjustment that fixes a low number faster than anything: attack it from both sides at once. Do not only cut, and do not only earn. Do both in the same month, and send every bit of the difference to your future. A person who trims $200 of waste and adds $300 of income has just moved $500 a month from spending to building, and at a normal income, that can lift a savings rate by 10 or 15 points in a single step. Track this number monthly. Not obsessively, just once a month, when you review. Watch it climb. Because a rising savings rate is the clearest sign in the world that this plan is working, long before your account balance looks impressive. The balance is the result. The savings rate is the cause. Fix the cause, and the result becomes inevitable. Now that you can measure the truth, let us give that saved money somewhere powerful to go. It is finally time to invest. Now we build the wealth engine, and I am going to strip away every ounce of complexity that keeps normal people out of investing, because the truth is that simple, boring investing beats almost everyone who tries to be clever. Let us start with the force that does the heavy lifting: compound growth. When you invest, your money earns a return. The next year, your original money and last year's return both earn a return. Over decades, that stacking becomes staggering. The growth on your growth eventually dwarfs everything you originally put in. This is why time in the market matters more than the amount. A modest sum invested early and left alone can outgrow a much larger sum invested late. The most valuable resource you have as an investor is not money. It is time. Which means the best day to start is the day you have your safety net in place, not decades from now when you feel ready. So what do we actually buy? Here is where people overthink it and lose. They try to pick the winning stock, time the market, chase the hot tip. Decades of data are brutally clear: the overwhelming majority of professionals, with teams and computers, fail to beat the simple market average over time. If the pros cannot reliably beat it, you and I should stop trying to. Instead, we buy the average itself. A low-cost index fund is a single fund that holds a tiny slice of hundreds or thousands of companies at once. When you buy it, you own a piece of the whole market. You are not betting on one company surviving. You are betting that the broad economy keeps growing over decades, a bet that is paid off through every crash, war, and crisis in modern history for the patient investor. Two features matter enormously. First, keep the fees low. A broad index fund charges almost nothing, while many actively managed funds quietly skim a percentage or more every year. That difference sounds tiny and costs you a fortune over decades. Fees compound against you exactly like growth compounds for you. Second, diversify. By owning the whole market instead of a few names, a single company's collapse cannot sink you. You have spread the risk across the entire economy. Now, the behavior that makes it work, because the strategy is easy and the behavior is hard. You invest a fixed amount on a regular schedule, every paycheck, every month, no matter what the market is doing. When prices are high, your fixed amount buys fewer shares. When prices crash, that same amount buys more shares on sale. This is called dollar-cost averaging, and it removes the impossible job of timing the market. You are not guessing. You are accumulating, relentlessly, through the ups and the downs. And when the market drops, and it will, repeatedly, you do not panic and sell. A market crash, for someone still buying, is not a disaster. It is everything you want to own going on sale. The investors who build real wealth are not the ones who dodge every downturn. They are the ones who keep buying through them and refuse to sell. The single greatest enemy of your investment returns is not the market. It is your own urge to react to it. Set the machine, feed it consistently, and let time and compounding do the work that no amount of cleverness can replicate. Next, we make sure you are doing this inside the right accounts, because where you invest can hand you free money and save you a fortune in taxes. Buying index funds is the what. Now let us talk about the where, because the account you invest inside can literally hand you free money and shield your gains from taxes for decades. Getting this order right is worth a fortune over a lifetime. Here is the order of operations for your investing dollars, once your high-interest debt is gone and your safety net is set. Step 1, and this is non-negotiable: if your employer offers a retirement match, capture the full match first. A match means that when you put money into your workplace retirement account, your employer adds money on top, often matching what you contribute up to a limit. Read that again. That is an instant, guaranteed return, frequently 100%, before the market does anything at all. There is no investment on earth that reliably doubles your money the moment you make it. Leaving an employer match on the table is one of the only true free money mistakes in personal finance, and millions of people make it every year. Contribute at least enough to get every dollar of that match. Step 2, consider a tax-advantaged retirement account you open yourself. These accounts come in two broad flavors, and the difference is about when you pay tax. One type lets you invest money before tax and pay when you withdraw in retirement. The other lets you invest money you have already paid tax on, and then your withdrawals in retirement, including all those decades of growth, come out completely tax-free. For many people early in the rebuild, especially when your income and tax rate are lower now than you expect them to be later, paying the tax now and letting decades of growth come out tax-free is an enormous advantage. Growth you never pay a cent of tax on is a gift the tax code hands to ordinary people, and shockingly few use it fully. Step 3, if you still have money to invest after capturing the match and using your tax-advantaged space, a regular brokerage account has no contribution limits and gives you full flexibility. It does not carry the same tax perks, but it lets your wealth keep growing with no cap. Inside every one of these accounts, what do you buy? The same simple thing from the last chapter: low-cost, broad index funds. The account is the wrapper. The index fund is the contents. People confuse the two constantly. The account decides your tax treatment and whether you get free matching money. The fund inside it decides what you actually own. You need both right, the free money and tax-advantaged wrapper, holding the low-cost, diversified fund. There is one more account worth knowing about if you have a certain type of health plan: a health savings account, which carries a rare triple tax advantage and can quietly become one of the best retirement accounts almost nobody talks about. If you have access to one, it is worth researching. Get the order right: match first, tax advantage next, brokerage last, put boring index funds inside, and you have built the exact machine the wealthy use, with none of the mystery. Now let us make sure this whole plan actually runs, month after month, without depending on your willpower. We automate it. Here is a hard truth about willpower: it runs out. Every plan that depends on you making the right choice, over and over, month after month, eventually loses to a tired Tuesday and a tempting purchase. So we do not depend on willpower. We build a system that makes the right thing happen automatically, whether you feel like it or not. This one idea, automation, is what separates people who intend to build wealth from people who actually do. The core principle is called pay yourself first, and it inverts how most people handle money. Most people spend first, then try to save whatever is left over, and somehow there is never anything left over, because spending expands to fill whatever it is allowed to touch. Pay yourself first flips it: the moment your income arrives, the money for your future is moved out automatically, before you can see it or spend it. You save first and spend what remains, and your spending quietly adjusts to the smaller number without any drama. Here is how to build it. Set up automatic transfers timed to your payday. The day your paycheck lands, an automatic transfer sends a set amount to your investment accounts. Another automatic transfer tops up your savings. Your bills are on autopay from your checking account. What is left in checking after all of that is, by definition, yours to spend freely, no guilt, no tracking every coffee, because the important money already moved before you touched it. You have made saving and investing the default instead of the decision. Think about what this does. On your best month and your worst month, the plan runs identically. When you are motivated and when you are exhausted, the transfers fire the same way. You have removed yourself as the point of failure. The wealth builds in the background while you live your life. And here is the compounding magic of it: each time your income rises, you increase the automatic transfer by most of the raise before you ever adjust to the new money. Lifestyle stays flat, the transfer grows, and the gap widens automatically, invisibly, every single year. You never feel poorer, because you never saw the money. That is how people who do not feel rich end up wealthy. The system did the discipline for them. One caution: automation is powerful, which means you must point it in the right direction first. Get the plan right, debt gone, safety net set, right accounts, low-cost funds, and then automate it. Automating a bad plan just fails you faster. But automating the right plan is like installing an engine that runs whether or not you show up. Set it once, review it a few times a year, and let the machine build your future on a schedule that does not care how you feel. Now, before you leave, we have to cover the traps, because there are a handful of specific mistakes that take people who did everything right and reset them all the way back to zero. Knowing them is how you make sure this is the last time you ever have to start over. You have built the machine. Now let me protect it, because there are specific, predictable traps that undo all of this work, and the people who fall into them usually never see it happening. Trap 1, and the deadliest: lifestyle inflation. We touched it earlier, but it earns its own warning because it is so quiet. Every time your income rises, your spending wants to rise to match. It never feels reckless, it feels earned, reasonable, deserved. But if your lifestyle rises with every raise, your gap never grows, and you can earn twice as much and end up exactly as broke, just with nicer things and bigger payments. The defense is the rule we set: when income rises, lifestyle holds, and the difference goes to the machine. Trap 2, the car. Vehicles are where enormous amounts of ordinary wealth quietly die. A car is a depreciating asset, it loses value every single year you own it, and yet people finance expensive new ones, tying up hundreds of dollars a month, for years, in something actively losing value. That monthly payment, invested instead over a working life, is frequently the difference between an ordinary retirement and a wealthy one. You do not need the newest car. You need reliable transport that does not drain the engine you just built. This is why so many quiet millionaires drive modest, older, paid-off cars, not because they cannot afford better, but because they understand what the payment really costs. Trap 3, debt creeping back in. The credit card paid off in a moment of discipline slowly refills. The buy now pay later offer makes a purchase feel free when it is not. New financing appears for the next want. The high interest debt you fought so hard to kill sneaks back, and the 24% begins draining you again. The defense is your budget and your emergency fund. The fund absorbs the shocks that used to send you to the card, and the budget keeps wants from becoming debt. Trap 4, trying to get rich quick. Once you have money accumulating, you become a target. The hot tip, the guaranteed return, the thing your friend swears is going to explode. The math machine you built is boring on purpose, and boredom makes people reach for excitement with money they cannot afford to lose. The overwhelming majority of get-rich-quick attempts end in get-poor-quick. Protect the boring machine. Let it be boring. Trap 5, the subtle one: lifestyle envy from what you see online. Everyone appears to be doing better than you, driving nicer, traveling more, and much of it is either debt-funded or performance. Comparison drives spending you never wanted, to impress people who are not thinking about you. The wealthiest people are frequently the least flashy, precisely because they put the money into freedom instead of appearances. Avoid these 5, and the machine you built keeps running for decades. Fall into them, and you can end up right back at zero, wondering what happened. You now know what happens. Knowing is the defense. Let us close by looking at what all of this actually adds up to. Let us zoom out and look at what this plan actually builds, because when you are in the middle of week 1 canceling subscriptions, it is hard to see where it leads. So let me show you the trajectory. Follow this plan from zero, and here is the realistic arc. In the first few months, you stop the leaks and build your $1,000 cushion. For the first time, you are not one bad day from disaster. Over the following months to a year or so, you crush your high-interest debt while raising your income, and the day that last card hits zero, a large chunk of your monthly income suddenly belongs to you again. In the year after that, you build a full emergency fund and start feeding the investing machine every single month. And then something quiet and powerful happens: compounding takes over. In the early years, your balance grows mostly from what you add. But keep going, and a crossover arrives where your investments start growing more from their own returns than from your contributions. That is the moment your money becomes a second worker, earning alongside you while you sleep. 5 years in, the person who started at zero and stayed consistent is unrecognizable from where they began. No high-interest debt, a full safety net, a rising savings rate, and a growing pile of investments compounding in the background. Not through luck. Through order, consistency, and a machine that runs on automation instead of willpower. Now here is the most important thing I can tell you. None of this works if it stays a video you watched. Knowledge without action is just entertainment. So here is your one job for tomorrow, not the whole plan, just the first domino. Tomorrow, pull up your last 60 days of statements and find one subscription or expense you forgot you were paying, and cancel it. That is it. One cancellation. Because the person who does one small thing tomorrow is on a completely different path than the person who felt inspired and did nothing. The plan is not built in a day. It is built by starting, and then not stopping. You do not need to be rich to begin. You do not need to be lucky. You need to start from wherever you are, even from zero, and follow the order. Stop the leaks. Build the cushion. Kill the debt. Raise the income. Secure the safety net. Invest the gap. Automate it. Protect it from the traps. That is the whole plan, and it works for ordinary people with ordinary incomes, because it always has. If this gave you a plan you did not have before, here is my question for you, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments. What is the one expense you are going to cancel tomorrow? Tell me. Writing it down makes it real. And if you want to keep rebuilding with me, subscribe, because everything on this channel is built to do exactly this: turn what school never taught you into a plan you can actually follow. This was education, not financial advice. Now go find that first leak. Your future self is already thanking you.